Picture a waiting room. Not a hospital waiting room. Not a doctor's office. Something different. This waiting room has no walls, no ceiling, no appointment time posted on the door. It stretches in every direction as far as you can see. And it is full of people. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. And here's the thing that will stop you cold if you really think about it. These are not ordinary people. These are talented people. Intelligent people. People with real ideas, real gifts, real potential sitting right beneath the surface. People who could build something remarkable if they simply stood up and walked out the door. But they're not walking out. They are sitting, waiting. Some of them are waiting for encouragement, waiting for someone close to them to finally say, "I believe in you. Go for it. You can do this." Some are waiting for the fear to leave before they take the first step. Some are waiting for the finances to align, for the timing to feel right, for the circumstances to stop being so complicated. And the cruelest part of this picture, the door is open. It has always been open. Nobody locked it. Nobody is guarding it. There is no bouncer standing at the entrance deciding who gets to leave and who has to stay. The door is wide open and always has been. But still they wait. Now here's a question I want you to sit with. And I mean really sit with, not just skim past it and keep watching. Are you in that waiting room right now? Not physically, but in your life, in your decisions, in the gap between where you are and where you know you could be. Because most people, when they hear a question like that, immediately think, no, not me. I am working on things. I have a plan. I am getting ready. And that right there, getting ready, is sometimes just a more comfortable name for waiting. Getting ready to start the business. Getting ready to make the change. Getting ready to have the hard conversation. Getting ready to commit fully. Getting ready, until months have passed, and the only thing that actually happened was the waiting itself. Here is what nobody tells you about waiting. Waiting is not neutral. It feels passive. It feels like standing still while you figure things out. But waiting is actually a decision. Every single day you choose to wait is a day you chose not to move. And those days accumulate. They stack on top of each other silently, invisibly, until one day you look up and realize that years have passed and the version of you that was going to do something remarkable is still sitting in that waiting room, still waiting for the right moment, still waiting for someone to show up and make it easier. The people who made it, the ones you admire, the ones whose stories you have read, whose journeys you have followed, they were in that same waiting room at some point. They felt the same uncertainty, the same fear, the same doubt. The only difference is they stood up and walked out the door, not because they had more, not because the timing was perfect, not because someone came and personally escorted them out. They left because they stopped waiting. And that is where everything begins. Let me show you something most people never get to see. You look at someone who has built something real, a business, a career, a life that looks intentional and solid. And from the outside it appears almost effortless, confident, assembled, like they always knew what they were doing, like the path was always clear to them. That image is a lie, not an intentional lie, not something people are hiding from you deliberately. It is just that success, by the time it becomes visible, has already been cleaned up, polished, edited. The messy middle parts have been quietly removed from the story because nobody photographs the 2 a.m. moments. Nobody posts about the week they almost gave up. Nobody frames a version of themselves that was completely lost and still kept going anyway. What you see is the destination. What you almost never see is the road that led there. And that road, the real road, looked nothing like the highlight reel. Think about what it actually takes to build something from nothing. In the beginning, there is no blueprint. There is no guarantee. There is no experience guide sitting beside you at every decision point saying, yes, go left here, trust this. This part is going to work out. In the beginning, there is mostly confusion. A lot of trying things that do not work. A lot of days where the effort is real, but the results are nowhere to be seen. And through all of that, through every failed attempt, every miscalculation, every moment of genuine doubt, the people who eventually made it kept going anyway, not because they were fearless. We will get to fear in a moment because that deserves its own conversation, not because they were perfect or naturally gifted beyond everyone else. They kept going because they made a private decision that most people never make. A quiet, unsexy, unannounced decision that nobody celebrated and nobody even noticed. They decided that uncertainty was not a reason to stop. Think about what that actually means. Uncertainty is uncomfortable. Every human brain is wired to prefer certainty. We like to know what is coming. We like to know the outcome before we commit the effort. We like guarantees. And when there are no guarantees, when the path is unclear and the result is unknown, the easiest thing in the world is to pull back, to wait, to decide that now is not quite the right time. The people who made it refused that exit. They sat with the discomfort of not knowing. They showed up the next day, even when the previous day gave them nothing encouraging to hold on to. They built things in private that nobody was asking for yet, and trusted that the work itself mattered even when nothing was confirming that belief. Here is the version of success nobody talks about enough. It is the entrepreneur working from a kitchen table with a laptop that takes 4 minutes to load, no funding, no team, no external validation. Just a stubborn refusal to accept that where they are right now is where they have to stay. It is a person rebuilding their health and their confidence after years of neglecting both. Waking up every morning to a process that feels painfully slow, with no cheering squad, no viral transformation story yet. Just the quiet discipline of doing the work. It is the artist, the writer, the builder, the creator producing work into what feels like complete silence. No audience, no feedback, no sign that anyone is paying attention, and continuing anyway. That is what making it actually looks like in the middle of it. Not polished, not certain, not supported, broken in some places, alone in most moments, scared more often than anyone ever admits, and still moving. There is a belief that quietly destroys more potential than almost anything else. It is the belief that you need be whole before you begin, that you need to heal first, stabilize first, sort through everything first, that the work of becoming who you want to be can only start once the weight of who you have been is fully resolved, once the past is processed, once the fear is gone, once the uncertainty is replaced with clarity and confusion is replaced with confidence. And so people wait to begin until they feel ready. The problem is that feeling never comes. Not because something is wrong with you, but because readiness is not a feeling that arrives before you start. Readiness is something that builds as you go. It is a product of motion, not a prerequisite for it. The people who made it were not ready when they started. They were broken in real, significant ways, not metaphorically broken in a poetic, inspirational sense. Actually broken, dealing with real things, grief, financial pressure, health struggles, broken relationships, failed attempts that left marks, self-doubt that was loud and persistent and sometimes nearly convincing. And they built anyway, not despite being broken. In many ways, because of it. Here is what brokenness actually is when you look at it clearly. It is not a disqualifier. It is not evidence that you are behind or less than. Brokenness is proof that you encountered life at full force and did not disappear. It is proof that something mattered enough to you that losing it or struggling with it actually affected you. That is not weakness. That is depth. The cracks in a person who has genuinely tried are not shameful. They are the record of someone who got in the ring when it would have been easier to stay outside it. Every scar has a story. Every struggle left a lesson. Every broken part of you that you're carrying into your next chapter also carries something valuable. Experience that cannot be faked, resilience that cannot be borrowed, an understanding of difficulty that only comes from having actually lived through it. You do not need to be fixed before you begin. You need to begin in order to discover which parts of you were never actually broken, just untested. Because here is what the waiting room never shows you. Every single person who walked out that door before you was carrying something heavy, something unresolved, something that would have been a perfectly reasonable excuse to stay seated. They did not leave because they had solved everything. They left because they decided that moving forward mattered more than waiting until they felt whole. And somewhere in the act of moving, somewhere in the commitment to the process, they found that the broken parts either healed on their way or turned into the very foundation of their strength. You are not too broken to begin. You are exactly ready enough to start. This is a part of the conversation that most motivational content skips. Not because it is unimportant, because it is uncomfortable. because it does not fit neatly into an inspiring 30-second clip, because it is harder to package than a quote about discipline or a statement about grinding. But it is one of the most real parts of building something meaningful with your life. The loneliness, not the temporary loneliness of a quiet evening or a weekend where plans fell through. The deeper kind, the sustained, grinding loneliness of pursuing something that the people around you do not understand, and in some cases, do not support. The loneliness of having a vision that exists clearly in your mind but cannot yet be seen by anyone else because it has not materialized yet. The loneliness of working towards something while the people in your life quietly wonder when you're going to give up and do something more realistic. The loneliness of sitting with your ambition in a room full of people who have made peace with staying exactly where they are. That loneliness is real. And if you are in the middle of it right now, you deserve to hear someone acknowledge it honestly instead of glossing over it with a line about trusting the process. It is hard. It genuinely is. There will be seasons on this road where nobody in your immediate world is walking a similar path, where the conversations you want to have about building, about growth, about the vision you are working toward, have no audience, where your excitement about what you are creating is met with blank stares or polite skepticism or well-meaning advice to be more realistic. And in those seasons, doubt becomes loud. Not just doubt about whether the goal is achievable. Doubt about whether you are the right person to achieve it. Doubt disguised as reason, disguised as maturity, disguised as other people's concern for you. Here is what the people who made it learned to do with that loneliness. They stopped fighting it and started using it. Solitude, when you stop resisting it, becomes one of the most powerful environments for growth that exists. When nobody is watching, you learn who you actually are when performance is not required. When nobody is cheering, you discover whether your commitment is real or whether it was always dependent on external fuel. When nobody understands the journey, you're forced to develop an internal clarity about why you're doing what you're doing that no amount of external encouragement could ever give you. The loneliness teaches you to become your own anchor, and that the ability to keep yourself steady without relying on outside validation is one of the rarest and most valuable qualities a person can develop. The people who made it were not surrounded by believers at the beginning. Many of them were surrounded by skeptics, by well-meaning people who loved them and still doubted them, by environments that were not designed to support what they were trying to build. They built it anyway, not because the loneliness disappeared, but because they stopped waiting for company before they continued. If you are alone in this right now, that is not a sign that you are on the wrong path. It may be the clearest sign that you are on one worth walking. Let's talk about fear honestly for a moment, not the motivational version of fear, where someone tells you to face it and conquer it and leave it behind you. The actual version, the version that does not go away cleanly, the version that shows up even after you have already done the thing you were afraid of and still comes back the next time. Fear does not leave before you act. That is a misunderstanding that keeps so many people permanently frozen. They are waiting for the fear to pass, waiting to feel confident before they commit, waiting for the anxiety to settle so they can move forward from a place of calm certainty. That moment of calm certainty almost never comes, and waiting for it means standing still indefinitely. The people who built something real, who moved from where they were to somewhere worth going, were scared, not slightly uncomfortable, not mildly uncertain, genuinely scared, scared of failure, scared of what people would think, scared of investing everything into something and watching it not work, scared of succeeding and then not being able to sustain it, scared in ways that felt completely rational because the risk was real and the outcome was genuinely unknown. And they did it anyway. That is the actual definition of courage, not the absence of fear. The decision to move while fear is fully present and fully loud. Courage is not a feeling. It is a behavior. It is what happens when someone chooses action over comfort in a moment when comfort was very much available. Think about what this means for you practically. You are not going to wake up one morning and feel fearless about the thing you have been avoiding. That morning is not on the calendar. But you can wake up tomorrow morning and choose to act while the fear is still there, while the doubt is still present, while the outcome is still uncertain. That choice, repeated enough times, becomes something extraordinary. Because every time you act in the presence of fear, you send yourself a message. not a conscious, deliberate message, a deep cellular message that says, I can handle this. I can move even when moving is uncomfortable. I am not controlled by this feeling. And over time, that message accumulates into something that looks from the outside like confidence. But it is not confidence in the traditional sense. It is not the absence of doubt. It is a proven track record, built privately, built quietly, of choosing motion over paralysis. The people who made it were scared. They were scared at the beginning. They were scared in the middle. Many of them were scared even when the results started to arrive, terrified that it would all disappear, that they would be exposed as not good enough, that the progress was temporary. They kept going anyway, scared and moving. That is not a compromise. That is the path. That is the only path that has ever actually led anywhere worth going. Stop waiting to feel ready. Start moving while you are still afraid. Here is a habit so common it barely gets noticed anymore. Outsourcing. And I am not talking about hiring someone to handle tasks in a business. I am talking about something far more personal and far more costly. The slow, steady habit of outsourcing the responsibility for your own life to things and people outside yourself. Outsourcing your motivation to a playlist, a video, a quote, an external source of energy that you need to consume before you can function. Outsourcing your confidence to other people's opinions. Moving forward when people affirm you, pulling back when they do not. Outsourcing your standards to your environment. Working hard when you are around driven people, drifting when you are not. Outsourcing your growth to circumstances. Waiting for better conditions. Waiting for more support. Waiting for a sign. This habit is comfortable. It is also quietly devastating. Because here is what happens when you outsource your life. You become dependent on conditions you cannot control. And since conditions are almost never perfectly aligned, since motivation fluctuates and people are inconsistent and circumstances are unreliable, you are constantly at the mercy of things that have no loyalty to your goals. You have a good week when everything lines up. You fall apart when it does not. That is not strength. That is a fragile system built on borrowed fuel. The people who made it, the ones who built something durable, developed something different. They developed the capacity to generate their own fuel, to show up on the days when nothing external was pushing them, to maintain their standards regardless of who was watching, to stay committed to the work even when the work felt thankless and invisible and slow. Self-reliance is not the same as isolation. Let that be clear. You can have mentors. You can have a community. You can have people in your corner who believe in you and challenge you and celebrate your progress. All of that is valuable. None of it is the problem. The problem is dependence. The belief that you cannot move without those things. That the support is the engine rather than what it actually is. An accelerant. Something that helps you go further faster once you are already in motion. You are the engine. The moment you fully accept that, not intellectually, but in the way you actually behave on a Tuesday morning when nobody is watching and nothing is exciting, everything changes. Because you stop waiting for conditions to improve before you perform. You become the condition. You become the thing that makes the environment better rather than the thing that needs the environment to be better first. That shift is not dramatic. It does not happen in a single moment of inspiration. It is built slowly through a series of private decisions to show up anyway, to do the work anyway, to stay committed anyway, until one day the outsourcing stops completely. And what remains is someone who does not need to be rescued because they learned, through repetition and through choice, how to move on their own terms. Everything comes down to this. Not a strategy, not a system, not a new productivity framework or a morning routine, or the right set of habits stacked in the right order. A decision, one private, quiet, unwitnessed decision made not on a stage and not in front of an audience, but in a moment alone, when nobody is watching and nobody is waiting for the answer. The decision that your life is yours, not the economies, not your histories, not the people who doubted you or the circumstances that complicated things or the timing that was never quite right. Yours, fully, completely, without condition yours. That decision does not feel like a lightning bolt. It does not arrive with a soundtrack. It is not a peak moment that you will immediately recognize as a turning point. It is quieter than that, more private than that. But it is the most important thing you will ever do. Because once you make it, truly make it, not just think it, the waiting stops, the outsourcing stops, the looking around for someone to arrive and make things easier stops, and something else begins. Not perfection, not ease, not a sudden absence of fear or loneliness or uncertainty. All of those things may still be present, probably will be, but underneath them, something solid, something that was not there before. The knowledge that you are moving, that you made a choice, that the story of your life from this moment forward is being written by your actions and not by your circumstances. The people who made it, who did it broken, alone, and scared, did not make it because they were extraordinary at the start. They made it because they made that decision and then honored it, day after day, in the moments that felt impossible and in the moments that felt mundane, in the seasons that felt alive with momentum and in the seasons that felt painfully still. They honored the decision. And slowly, not overnight, not in a straight line, not without setbacks, things changed. Not because life became easier, because they became different, stronger, more grounded, more certain of who they were and what they were building regardless of what was happening around them. That is available to you. Not someday, not once the conditions improve or the fear fades or the support arrives. Right now, the door out of the waiting room is still open. It has always been open. You do not need to be whole to walk through it. You do not need to be fearless. You do not need anyone's permission or encouragement or validation. You just need to stand up, make the decision, and move, because nobody is coming. And that is not the tragedy. That is the freedom.